chapter clicked in to College Volleyball Weekly on Viral Volley Media. Now here's your host, Rob on mic.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to yet another season of College Volleyball Weekly. I'd say it's episode number 1 for our 2025 season, but we had Pav and Hoxie in on the first official episode of College Volleyball Weekly, but that was before 2025. So happy New Year to you all. You'll recognize the 4 faces on there, and the way it's divided on my screen, it's got West Coast up top and everywhere else on the bottom. We have from sunny Southern California coming in right around 68, 70 degrees, Brad Rostratter of UC San Diego. Theo Edwards of CSUN, and then chilling, just clearing out the snow in his driveway, Jay Hostic of George Mason, and existing in negative 30 weather in our great white north in Canada. That's Dan, friend of Lewis. Thanks for joining me, gentlemen.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
2025 season is here. Yay!
Well, let's jump right into it because we did miss that. All the news that happened in the off months of men's volleyball, but related and semi not at the same time, USA volleyball transition. John Sprawn stepping down from UCLA and from the USA men's national team to become the USA president and CEO. Wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. Let's start with you, Dan. Since you're freezing, we need to get you in hot.
Well, I think it's a great move. I think John being the head of USA Volleyball, he's got a brilliant mind. He's been around the game forever, worn several hats for us, and I think he's going to continue to push USA Volleyball where it needs to go. I think Karch being our men's national team coach is a home run. You take a guy who won a gold medal on the women's side, has won several gold medals himself, and knows how to compete at the elite level, and brings this meticulous mind and fresh thought and process into the men's side. So I'm really excited about that. And Steve Bishop, another home run, a guy who's been around the game a long time. And so just 3 great moves by USA Volleyball, I think, and kind of excited to see who the women's national team coach is going to be. But I think we're headed in a great direction to start in 2025.
Hey, you bring that up, and we're hours away from the big announcement. And, off chat on our text, we were theorizing or conspiracy theorizing who could be the next person. We'll go to that later, but let's go to you, Jay.
Well, I echo Dan's sentiment. I think all 3 of those hires are great hires. Speraw obviously has ingrained himself in USA Volleyball from way back in the day, and it's a really solid person to have in that position. My concern is not the right word. My hope is that he starts to put men's collegiate volleyball on some front burners, and maybe with a little bit more weight behind now that he is the CEO of USA Volleyball. Can he help steer us in a direction that gets us a little bit more to the forefront? But regardless of that, I know he's drinking from a fire hose right now. I think the other thing is was any part of his decision, and this is, we're seeing it across other sports, is any part of his decision part of the consideration because the new landscape of athletics in college as it stands? There's a lot of things now that you have to consider, and I think Nick Saban said it the other day that when he was coaching back in the day, he was recruiting from the high schools, right, and occasionally some junior colleges here and there. He's saying nowadays, not only did he have to recruit from the high schools, but he had to recruit from the transfer portal. He had to recruit from the JCs. He also has to recruit his own kids every year. And, there's a lot of coaches that are getting out of the game at this point that are big, prominent positions, big people that have been around their sport for a long time. And, Speraw seeing the writing on the wall and going, there's a lot of headache coming down the path, and I really don't want to be a part of it anymore. I don't know. I haven't talked to him since it's happened, but I wonder if that was part of his decision. Just curious.
Yeah. Let's jump over to Brad and thoughts on the USAV transitions.
Yeah, I think first with Speraw, it's I think it was a little shocking to me and in a positive way, and did not see it coming. But thinking about it, it made so much sense in terms of some of the strides that USA Volleyball, I would imagine, are trying to make in terms of kind of re-collaborating with some of the youth and some of the club teams and getting them back involved with USA Volleyball, and really just having John and someone who's so familiar with the landscape of USA Volleyball, specifically at the club and at the college ranks. I think it really helps having someone that clued in, dialed in to the club directors and basically the people of influence for that world. And I think we all know how competitive John is and how successful he's been throughout his coaching career. And I think that's going to bode well to USA Volleyball success. And I think when I think about his career, is he's never been afraid to do something he believes in and he thinks is going to be in the best interest for his team or for his program. And I think without a doubt, that's going to translate really, really well to USA Volleyball. And you see it with some of those moves initially, like Karch. I think some people thought about it, but I don't think too many people found it too realistic. And obviously, I think all of us echo how much of a home run that is and how cool it is to have Karch leading us into 2028 and the LA Olympics out here. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. Really excited for Karch and the men's team with Luca and Javier. And I think it's just going to be a really good change of leadership across USA Volleyball. And yeah, I think right now we're 3 for 3, and I'm excited that hopefully sometime, maybe today or this week, we go 4 for 4 with all these new hires.
All right, let's close it out with Theo.
Yeah, I think these guys hit it on the head. I think Spraw is stepping down at the peak of coaching, of his coaching career for sure, and maybe the pinnacle of most coaches, right? A podium finish in the Olympics, back-to-back national championships at UCLA. There isn't a thing he hasn't accomplished. And I think as on a personal level, from a friend and colleague perspective, I'm just proud of what he's done as a coach. I think it's a bummer that we lose him in that space because, although there are some really, really great coaches, I think John is one of the best to ever do it in many ways. But to see him step up and become the USA president, I think that there's, from all of us, Jay hinted toward this, but our hope is to have somebody who fully understands the ins and outs of our game and some of the challenges that we run into on the men's side, that he might have the ability and potentially a voice to really make some strides for men's volleyball in the United States. And, I think this is one of the first years in watching what's happened with the women's game and, the biggest viewership in the history of NCAA for women's volleyball. I think we're really in a sweet spot where we can make some changes, and there's a lot of fans that really, really love this game and support it. And so I think John's going to be great in that role, and I'm super excited to see it. I think the Karch move is absolutely fantastic. These guys echoed, what he brings and his history, but I think it's been a long time since we've had a non-college coaching coach in that role, which I think really gives him a lot of advantages, the ability to really keep an ear to every team in the country and help us all help USA Volleyball build a base. And for those that don't know, the collegiate game plays such an important role in developing our national team athletes. And so the ability for Karch and his assistants to foster the relationships with the coaches around the country and continue to bridge that gap and really provide the best possible USA team we really can. I think Karch is going to be elite in that role, and I'm just super excited to watch it unfold.
I'm curious for you coaches there, and I've been following some of the chatter online, but how will that dynamic be from transitioning from the women's national team to the men's team be, or coaching women versus men? Is there a difference? Is there going to be a learning curve, you think, for Karch and his crew? And then I want to open that up to you guys. So whoever wants to jump on in.
I'll take that first. Just being around Karch the last 3 years yes, there's going to be some differences within the game for Karch and Luca, who's also been out a little bit, but people need to understand how meticulous Karch and Luca and that staff is going to be, to where I'm sure they've already watched every single professional match that every USA guy in the mix has played at this point. So they're going to be up to speed and rolling well before the men get back to training. And that is very easy for people of that caliber to get caught up and to know everything that's going on. And they're volleyball geniuses. And I think ultimately the greatest strength of that crew is they're connectors of people, and they're going to be supporting them and helping them and guiding them. And the volleyball piece will be able to take care of itself pretty darn quickly.
Yep. Anyone else?
I can just tell you, I know they've reached out to all the players already. They were in the gym and the ones that were training. So that says a lot about already what Brad brought up about the meticulous of finding out where the players are at and what they're needing. And when I talked to Luca, their plan is to be in every college gym that they can be in this year. And those are all great things to hear.
Yeah. Anything else from gentlemen?
Yeah, I think kind of back on them not having to coach a collegiate team simultaneously, which is what our national team players have been used to. They've hit the ground running, and they're already doing things that, just out of limitations of John Sprague being able to be in only one place at a time. They are full time and diving into this thing. And yeah, I have very few concerns about that transition. I think they know the men's game well, and it won't take long for them to continue to make our program elite.
Happen to catch a video clip of the Out of System guys and the If You Can't Stand the Heat, Get Out of the Kitchen podcast. They had TJ DeFalco on there asking about the first conversation with Coach Ryan. Sounds like went really well. He's definitely one of the guys that works well with everyone. He's learning, but at the same time, he's connecting, as Brad was saying. So, the final piece of that puzzle, Brad alluded to it, was that fourth piece. And we were having a good time on our text threads. Who could that women's national team head coach be? Which is going to be announced, well, at the time of our recording, probably within the next 3 to 4 hours, depending on where you're at. So, I was spending my last weekend prodding some people on what they knew. And there's a lot of, we'll say, conspiracy theories, so to speak. So, but who do you guys think would be a good fit for the program? A collegiate coach or someone who hasn't been in the game on the women's side? And we'll throw that one out there for you.
I'll go first because the other guys talked about Karch. I think we've learned historically, although great coaches, I think having a foreigner come in and coach a USA team is probably not going to be the best option. That's my own take on it. It's not because I don't think there's any foreign coaches that are worthy. There are many that would do great things. I would be more apt to think that John's going to keep it in-house, so to speak, with a USA coach. I think my top runner was Dan Fisher. I thought he would have been a perfect candidate. I've known Dan for years. He's a fantastic coach. He's taken a team that, for all intents and purposes, was a bottom feeder in their conference for a long time and not doing fantastic things, and turned that program into a powerhouse in a short amount of time. He would have been, I think, a great choice. I don't know whether or not he's in the hunt or even if he wants that job. I'm just saying that would have been my top choice. If you look around, you got Kevin Hambley, who's a person that people are talking about. You got Aaron Virtue, who's a person that people are talking about. I vote for Dan Friend. I think he's not in Canada. I think he's in LA. I think he's going to get the job. But no, seriously, I think whoever they do choose, there's going to be a lot of thought going into it. It's not going to be a random selection just to fill the spot. It's a highly prized job. It obviously, the location of the training and all that is pretty desirable for some people, but I think overall, I think whoever John does pick and the committee does pick, I think is going to be worthy of that job, and I think they're going to do great things.
Yep. Anything else from around the board? All good?
I think for me, I think it's got to be someone from the NCAA game. I think it would be done if it wasn't already and announced. So I think they had some time to get to work through it after the Final Four and after everything had settled. But yeah, I'm excited. I think it's going to be someone who's going to be able to help us. And I think the fact it's taking longer leads me to kind of think or assume it's going to be someone maybe a little bit different than like kind of the people we can come up with off the top of our head. So it'll be exciting.
I think Brad knows something. I just want to point that out to everybody. Do you know what I mean?
I wish I did.
Could it be Dave Hunt, former College Volleyball Weekly contributor?
If it's Dave Hunt, I'm gonna be a little bummed because I haven't heard anything from him.
Who knew that this podcast could lead to such great things?
Well, Theo, were you going to say something there?
The volleyball world is so funny because most of the time, a lot of the rumor mills start stirring and we start hearing things well before it happens. And I am shocked that no one on this podcast has a clue as to what direction this is heading. And we're hours from an announcement. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Well done, USA.
Or one
Well,
of
I'll
us
tell you,
knows,
I was.
hey, or one of us knows and we're just not saying it.
Well, I
I
was,
think Rob knows.
when someone mentioned Dave Hunt yesterday, I strategically had to contact him, and he didn't spill anything. So,
Well, John Hawks didn't spill anything either when he was going to UCLA, so that says something. People are just tight-lipped.
I'll take this opportunity because First Point Challenge is coming up in 2 weekends, and I was like, "Hey, Dave, you going to be at the matches at the First Point Collegiate Challenge? Hey, by the way, are you going to be on the national team again?"
Good
So,
call.
well, let's jump into NCAA Division 1-2 men's volleyball, and a lot of transitions this last summer. Obviously, the first domino falling was Coach John Spraw leaving UCLA, which left a big void after 2 national championship UCLA. Thoughts on the John Hawks hire? His coming back to LA. Dan Friend, are you happy that he leaves the MIVA from Loyola?
I mean, it's a smart move by John. I think just he was there for so long, recruited a lot of those guys. So I don't think I was surprised at all that that move happened. I wasn't surprised by Shane Davis coming back to Loyola. I always thought Shane would come back to men's side, and he was phenomenal there before. And no, I don't want a great coach there no matter what. What are we talking about, dude? Those guys are both great coaches. I mean, it makes our league better with either one of them at the helm. And you think the MIVA continues to push the envelope on what level it's competing at. And so, but two great hires at two institutions, I think.
Yep. All right, let's go to Theo on this. So you haven't gone early in the first half, so I'll let you speak to we'll go between Hawks and the Shane Davis hire.
Sure. Yeah. I think Hawks is a great fit. We talked about it before, and not only is he a great coach and his ties with USA and the youth and junior programs, but I think UCLA is home for him. I think it's home for his family. I think Southern California is kind of where he inevitably wanted to be. And when he got the call, I think it took him less than 4 or 5 seconds to say, I'm in. So I'm happy for him. I think it's a great fit. And yeah, the return of Shane Davis, I think, is a really interesting one. And I think a really great hire and great move by their AD, kind of thinking outside the box and hoping to bring back championships and titles to Loyola. And so I think it's a great move for both programs.
Yep. Let's go back over to Jay.
Well, obviously they're both great hires. I'm going to comment on the fact that when we were in Vegas, as coaches were out there, and we had some time together to kind of share and catch up, and Shane joined us on an occasion or two, and the look on his face was one of comfort and relief and just sheer overall joy to not be in the rat race known as women's volleyball and back on the men's side where things are a little bit gentler in terms of the relationships that you have with all your fellow coaches. And he was really happy to be back on this side with us. And, he dipped his toes in the water and found out that it's a little bit tougher than maybe some of us think, but really for the most part, it's just way more of a grind on that side. And so I think he's happy to be back, and we're happy to see him back in the game.
All right. Close out with Brad.
Yeah, I think two hires that I think a lot of people were like rumoring and thinking about, and those were probably two names that came to mind for both universities pretty quickly or pretty close to the top of the list. So really cool to see both of them end up in spots that seem like a great fit for them, great fit for their universities, and really a great fit to continue creating a great product at Loyola and at UCLA.
All good stuff. Let's go to our next group of 3 is what I've broken it down into, but Robert Poole named head coach at Charleston, Justin Beaumont named head coach at LIU of the NEC, Chris Shortgen named first head coach at Manhattan College. Oh, might as well go to the 4th. And Dr. Anita Brockman named head coach of University of Maryland Eastern Shore, which is our 68th D1-2 men's volleyball team. A lot of hires and new coaches in the different conferences. Let's start with you, Brad. Thoughts on any of them or all of them? Have at it.
I think all of them have had a lot of different experiences and a lot of different pieces. I know Robert was a little bit younger, but had a really great experience working under Luke Reynolds, who obviously left to go to Pepperdine. And I know he's a great coach. I know Roberts has a good background as a player. So I think he'll be able to fit in and kind of follow suit in some of the things that Luke had rolling there for Charleston. Really enhancing the exposure of that program, specifically with international players. And I think all the other coaches have a strong history, and it's something where as they're coming into these newer, younger programs and building it up, it becomes really, really crucial and really, really important that they're building up, yes, the volleyball piece, but also the cultural piece. And I think all three of the other coaches have that experience at their previous institutions. So I'm really excited to see them keep building that up as a coach and keep building up the product.
Yep. Jay.
Well, Robert Poole, I think, continues the trend of Luke at Charleston. You know, Luke was a pretty passionate coach, and I think Robert fits that mold pretty well. And so I think it's going to be seamless in that transition. I think the LIU job is a good one. I'm wondering how much resources they're going to be getting in the future. I don't know if they're getting increased or not. We don't know anything about Manhattanville yet, so we don't know what that status is going to be, other than we hope that it takes off and it goes well. I think the really interesting hire and the good one is Dr. Anita Brockman. She's a really well-known coach. She's been on the women's side for a number of years, and has done some really great things. The great thing for us at our program is, you know, as the crow flies, they're only about 45 minutes to an hour away from us. The sad thing is, in reality, you can't just shoot over the bridge and get to their school. You gotta go all the way up and all the way around. But she and I have already been emailing back and forth about trying to do some double home matches in years to come and try to share in that locale, so to speak, and bringing teams in. So I'm excited to work with her and see what we can do in the future about bringing more teams out east and sharing in that progress.
Yep. Let's go to Dan.
Yeah, I was good at the LIU situation. I'm glad they got a coach. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't, it wasn't pretty, and it was messy, and I felt for those student athletes. And so I'm glad they got that kind of figured out. And I think Justin will do a good job, and he's got things headed in that direction. And so I'm really glad about that. And we talked about Poole. I thought for sure that was happening. And really, you go follow Dr. Anita Broxman's social media. She does some great things on her social media, and is really doing things a phenomenal way. And so I'm excited to see her head that program up and get it going and off the ground. And if you've never had a conversation with her, she's a great woman. And so say hi to her sometime in terms of that. She's doing some great things. I don't know Chris yet, but I'm excited for him and his opportunity at Manhattan. And so I think that'll be great.
Well, especially after St. Francis Brooklyn fell off the map, and it's good to have another school right inside the Manhattan, or actually in New York. So I thought it was a great news to see another D1-2 team in that area. But let's close out the topic with Theo.
Yeah, I think, you know, these hires and the moves that we're making across men's volleyball is just fantastic and shows the growth, right? These guys kind of hit it on the head. I think, you know, I can't say enough about Dr. Anita Brockman. She's absolutely fantastic. Thought she did a great job at Central State, and is just continuing to move up in her coaching career. But, you know, I think we've talked about this towards the end of our last meetings on the podcast, but the changes that are happening in NCAA, I wish that they also reflected the growth that our game is seeing. You know, these guys, we all got together in Las Vegas and for the most recent tournament, and to see where men's volleyball is today, the level, the number of players, the quality of coaching, and for me in my own coaching career to watch where it's gone over the last 15 years has just been incredible. It's been really, really awesome to watch and be a part of. And you know, the rule changes that are coming for the NCAA, I think, are really the concerning piece for me. And you know, the roster caps and bringing down the size and opportunities for men's volleyball players across the country is a little concerning, especially at the Division I level, and finding a balance to how men's volleyball falls in a world that's driven by football and basketball, which is essentially what we're all kind of waiting to see how that cookie crumbles. But you got a bunch of programs adding, you got a bunch of great coaches that want to be a part of the men's game. And I think we're really primed for some great things in the future. And my hope is that the NCAA doesn't make that difficult, and it only makes it easier.
Yeah, good calls on y'all. Well, the other news is two teams enter the MPSF and two teams that are going to have connections to two of our people on the screen here. Vanguard University kicks into gear in the MPSF, and Menlo College entered in and got their first win against none other, the Banana Slugs of UC Santa Cruz, Jay's alma mater.
Shut your mouth when you're talking about my alma mater like that.
So, and also the NKU to the MIVA. And the other big news is additions to teams. Brad Rostratter's family got a bun in the oven. Congratulations, Brad, as the Rostratter family expands by one. So definitely want to give notice there. And also, one of the topics that was a question mark, but Dan so quickly answered via text is now with the NEC getting that auto berth, we wanted to know what's going to happen with the bids for at-larges. Thoughts were saying, or people were saying, oh no, we're going to go down to one at-large, which, that was going to rattle a bunch of cages. But Dan clarified. So I'll let you go ahead and speak about the auto berths and at-larges for the 2025 NCAA Men's Volleyball Championship.
Yeah, so basically the NEC is going to get their bid in from their conference tournament, and we'll still have two at-large, so it'll be a 9-team format. And basically how that's working is 8 of the teams will play on-site in Columbus. And if everybody remembers, championships will be on Monday. I don't have the exact date in front of me. So the finals Monday, the semifinals will be Saturday, and the quarterfinals will be Thursday. Everything's going to be on ESPN, I believe, Plus, which is fantastic. I think the finals is on ESPN2. I think certainly we're piggybacking a little bit off of all the buzz with volleyball in general, especially on the women's side right now. So the more of those rounds, we remember conversations just a few years ago that we were lucky to get the final on anything. So, I mean, so the fact that we're going to get all those streamed on ESPN Plus to ESPN2 is fantastic. The opening round, the play-in round will probably be that Friday or Saturday, the weekend before. And so the 9-8 seed, I think, in terms of geographic location, things like that, will play that match to get into the 8 teams that are on site for the tournament. Did I answer everything?
I think so. But the big news is the fact that now they bump it a week later, so it's not on the same weekend as the Collegiate Beach National Championships. I believe the opening round will be played on Friday, May 9th, which puts the final on Monday, May 12th, if my projection is correct, because Beach is that first weekend in May.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
all
It'd
good
be
stuff.
nice. I think that was one of the things, that the AVCA governing body for the coaches, American Volleyball, they can kind of support our championship a little bit better, because I think those being on the same weekend made that difficult at times. So,
other panelists, any thoughts on the NCAA auto berths and at larges?
No, I think it's good. We're expanding.
All right. Well, that brings us to the big topic to start our 2025 season, preseason poll. Wanted to get your thoughts on where everyone landed on there. I will just go with the top 5, but then feel free to drop any other teams in there. UCLA at 1, Long Beach State at 2, UC Irvine at 3, Hawaii at 4, Ball State at 5. Let's start with Theo on this one. I don't think you've started anything, but thoughts on the poll that came out on December 30th.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know that there are any surprises. If you look at the conference rankings and you look at some of the top teams that are essentially coming out, I think that it is right where I would have it personally. UCLA defending champs, Long Beach obviously impressive, and the addition of Nikolov is pretty scary. Irvine Player of the Year returning. I think top to bottom, if you look at it, the preseason poll is always exciting. It's always exciting to look at, but it's never right. and in the very near future, we're going to see a lot of upsets. We're going to see a lot of changes happening there. And obviously, we already saw Ohio State and BYU go at it. And as you start to see some of these teams shape up, they look a lot different on paper than they do in person. And so I'm excited for the season, excited to see how things shake out.
Yep. Let's go over towards Dan.
Yeah, I think your top 4 or 5 are probably going to be mainstays for sure. I think, watching Hawaii live. I think they certainly have some young pieces that are going to go through some learning curves with those guys in terms of how they were doing some things. But McKendry's super talented, so I wasn't shocked at all. I think they could even probably stole that match the first night from that standpoint. And so, Ball State will be a good test against Stanford coming up, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. But I think 5 through 25, I think there's going to be a lot of movement, a lot of pieces, and a lot of things happening. Do you know what I mean? And so I think when you do this first poll, you kind of try to look at some of these pieces and who they're returning and kind of what's going on. And but when you get down to it and you start seeing these games in January and February, I think you're going to see a lot of parity and some great volleyball and some shifts in the people that are voting on the polls will have some challenges, I think, some weeks and trying to figure out what do those pieces look like and which teams are where from that standpoint.
Yeah. How about you, Jay?
Well, 3 of us on this call are on that voting committee, and unfortunately, one of those 3 was a jackass and didn't vote in the first one. So I'll let you all figure out which one that is. However,
Wow.
I will say this. It's the preseason poll. It's kind of hey, who do we think is going to be worth watching? I love that we have 20 because I think there are 20 teams that are pretty fun to watch and is good volleyball to be a part of. And there's another 3 or 4 or 5 teams after that could get hot at any given moment, and next thing you know, they're deserving of a little bit of a ranking. So I think it's more so just kind of a hey, these are the teams to keep an eye on, and at this point of the year, it's January. The volleyball is not going to be crisp. It's not going to be great to watch, but I'm just going to throw this out there right now. It's UCLA and Long Beach, and then the rest of us. Those 2 teams, I think, are ridiculously good, ridiculously loaded. It doesn't mean they're going to go undefeated and it's going to be just a guarantee, but those 2 teams are really poised to go pretty far in this year. And I'm excited to see anybody who can maybe take them off the pedestal once or twice. So, but for the rest of it, yeah, I think it's all pretty par for the course. I think it's okay.
Yep. Let's go over to Brad.
Yeah, lastly, with what Dan mentioned, like 5 through 25 is going to be a toss-up on any given night. And I think really what's going to be the deciding factor for kind of those teams 5 through 9, 5 through 10 are going to be which one of them, when they're at their best, are going to be able to take down some of those higher ranked teams or those teams ranked within the top 5. I think there's without a doubt some teams that are capable of that and competing with those top teams, with the preseason rankings. But ultimately, it'll come down to who's able to put it together on the right nights and really thrive in those big moments and those big matches.
Yep, as we know, as at the start of all the men's seasons, there's always a big upset in the first 2 or 3 matches of the year. So, we're waiting to see what that's going to be this season. Let's jump over. Like one of the teams that personally stuck out to me was USC. Last year they had some really young pieces, and they're all back in Jack Duker, Dylan Klein, and Wesley Smith. Who wouldn't want a 7'7" middle? And for a freshman, he was so strong, his upper body, but he's also got the height. So, I feel like they could have moved up, but are they going to go over BYU and Ball State and potentially Hawaii and Irvine? I don't know, but there's some good pieces for Jeff Nygaard and his crew that are definitely ones to consider. I wanted to look at our first weekish, I call it first one-ish schedule, because is it going to be a complete week with the Canadian North American Challenge with the 3 Canadian teams down and some other Canadian teams playing like a Concordia or a CUI? Sorry, Jay. But what did we see from this weekend that caught your eye as we go into the results of the week? And let's start with let's go with Theo again.
Yeah, the Hawaii McKendry, we brushed on that a little bit. I thought it was really interesting. I watched both matches. Night 1 was a battle. McKendry stole a set and honestly blew a couple of leads. Had some moments where they absolutely could have won that match. And I also think on the flip side, Hawaii has some really, really talented pieces. They went away from their Bulgarian opposite and brought in Finn Kearney, and were able to play really well with him, right? And Shred obviously has a connection with him. They've been in USA together for a long time. Then on night 2, Hawaii bounces back after beating them in 4, and on night 2, the opposite returns to the lineup and absolutely goes off. I think he had 17 kills, hit 448. Hawaii beat them in 3, and the second 2 sets really weren't close. Yeah, I think this Hawaii team is really good. There is probably one of those situations where it's going to take some time, but the transfer from Lindenwood, that was my first time getting an opportunity to see him play and see him play kind of in this system. Help me out with his name, Dan. What's his
Aaron
name?
McCraney.
No, Clay.
Oh,
Clay, right?
Clay Reader.
Peter. Oh, I thought you were talking about Kendry's middle. Okay.
No.
Yeah, no, and Weeder's really good and super talented, big kid, strong arm, did some really nice things from the service line. And so I thought that matchup was really interesting. But I think McKendry is going to be really good. They're really talented. They've got a lot of really, really nice pieces. And Jay kind of hinted to this. January volleyball is strange. It is super strange. And for most of us, those that don't know, we've been back in the gym for a week, maybe weeks if you're absolutely lucky. Most teams have really just don't have much time under their belt after a long hiatus. So as things change, so will these teams. And I think that was the thing that stuck out to me.
Yep. Let's jump back over to Jay. Thoughts on any of the opening weekend of matches?
I unfortunately, my time zone doesn't really help out with McKendree, Hawaii, so I did not stay up very late to watch those. I did watch on Volleymetrics a little bit of it. I agree with Theo. I think McKendree is going to be a very talented team this year. I think coming out early and going all the way out to Hawaii and playing them, the time zone changes and the fans and the whole 9 yards. It's a little bit of a shock at times, but I think McKendree's going to be pretty good. Nikki's going to have that team ready. I was watching BYU, Ohio State, and I'll be honest with you that historically both programs are very strong. I think Ohio State looked a little rusty around in the service game a little bit. I think Birch talked about it after the first night, and I think the second night was not a giant improvement from there, but most teams, I think who really impressed me was Theoni Kim. The kid comes into BYU as a transfer and just unloaded on Ohio State. I think the first night he had 14 kills, the second night he had 18 kills. Kid had 8 aces combined for both nights. I mean, that's ridiculous. Kid's 6 feet tall, 5'11" with shoes 6 feet, jumps a ton, cannon for an arm. And is a very experienced and polished player. Keone's a little spark plug, and BYU is very lucky to have that kid want to come in and play for them. But, I think both those teams are going to be a lot better as the year progresses. But that's the only match that I really paid much attention to.
Yep. All right, let's jump over to Dan.
Yeah, and I touched base a little on the McKendree, Hawaii, and I think McKendree's talented, and there'll be a team to reckon with. And it'll be interesting to see how Hawaii kind of moves forward because they got a couple depth pieces. You saw the one young man went in the middle. He was an outside. Why did his name pop out of my head?
Justin Todd.
Justin Todd went in and just thumped some balls in the middle. Do you know what I mean? And so that's a nice physical piece to have for them. That's touching probably close to 12 feet. So, and then the BYU Ohio State thing. It's interesting. Like there's been some years back when Pete used to coach Ohio State, they were, hey, we're going to serve as hard as we can, and we don't care how many we miss. And that's exactly how they won the national championship that one year. Because by the time you got to the end of the year, they were making a lot of those. So, but then you saw Kevin come in, and I don't know that Kevin had that same philosophy in the beginning, but maybe he's got a group this year that they're just trying to serve super hard, and in the next month, it's going to level out for them in terms of what they're doing from the service line and bringing that pressure. But I'm with Jay. Them's exciting to watch. Here's the interesting thing with him, and my assistant brought this up, is like, how many aces does this guy have at the end of the year if he's playing outside the entire year? Like he might break a record, you know what I mean, in terms of that stuff. And so, he's a fun player to watch. He reminds me of Drew Pickering back in the day. A couple of these guys on the screen know who he was, do you know what I mean? And so, but he'll be fun to continue to watch.
Yeah, I know how you feel about this, but the altitude adds another 6 or 7 feet to the serve. So
no, that's not. God dang it, Theo! I knew you were going to bring that up because I was going to comment.
Bigfoot wandering the Utah hills there too.
I do think it will come into some play a little bit, but there is no difference
He's
No
just gonna
different.
have more. He's just gonna have more aces because he'll be used to it. Can serve more balls why nobody else can serve in there. You know what I mean? In terms of that. So, but you saw Ball State play. But I mean, they played a couple matches where I think they were just trying to get going before they played Stanford. So I don't think there's a big tail sign. And then the CAM North American Challenge. It's interesting. We're up here. We're scrimmaging a little against Alberta as well. And they're mid-season. I don't know if everybody knows this. So the Canadian teams kind of start in October and they play and they go through. They take a break in December, kind of mid-season for them, and they start their league play back next week. And those teams down there came down and played with our volleyball, which is different than the volleyball that we're playing up here with the University of Alberta. So that certainly plays a little bit into it, I think. But at the same time, it's what a great partnership to be able to bring those teams down. And we come up here, Alberta treats us fantastic and really get some international flavor on some volleyball and compete at such a high level. And so it's really neat to see that and see what Alan's doing with that tournament and Brock and Terry having us up here.
Well, it's a great transition because Brad got to see 3 Canadian teams last week at the North American Challenge in Long Beach. But let's get your thoughts on the entire weekend's competition.
Yeah, I think first off, Ohio State, BYU, big thing that stands out is Ohio State and their setting position. They obviously started with Henwood. We know Cole Cooch is there. I would imagine as they get a rhythm, I would assume Cole Cooch ends up kind of honing in that offense and getting it rolling. So I think they'll only get better as they get more comfortable, and they didn't get a ton of reps and experience together this fall due to some things. And then BYU, they have Luke Benson and Keone Thiem on the left are 2 guys that can take over a match. And I think that when any team goes up against them, that's going to be something they're worried about, and they can go up and dominate and take over and really beat anyone in the nation with that combination. And seeing their right sides progress. I don't have the names of the 2 right sides they have, but seeing those 2 progress throughout the year will be a big piece to their success over time, and get in the top 2 in the MPSF. And then for Hawaii McKendree, I thought Adrian Rohr, the Frenchman, he played in the U21. I think he was MVP or all-tournament team out there, but he's their new French outside hitter, and he is an impressive player. Really, really talented, great serve, great arm, pretty good passer too. So he's going to be someone we'll probably be talking about quite a bit on this podcast. But ultimately, Hawaii was just a little bit better in medium system and out of system. Terminating the ball and killing the ball against McKendree. But we talk about early January volleyball and limiting errors, and both these teams, Hawaii and McKendree, limited their errors really, really well. And for us, as we're preparing to play McKendree tomorrow night, as they fly back, they're going to stop in San Diego for a match. Us getting to play more consistent, more steady volleyball and having to pass their serves over time and having to kill the ball and defend the ball over time is something that we're making sure we're preparing for. And then lastly, the North American Challenge for us was this weekend, Friday and Saturday, up at Long Beach. Because they had basketball, we were in the gold mine and also in the pyramid and going back and forth. And a huge shout out to the Long Beach State athletics event staff being able to switch the Terraflex back and forth for our games and then the women's basketball game, and then running back and forth from the gold mine to the pyramid. Really stressed their event staff, and not all their students being back. They were limited staff as well. So a huge shout out by them. And then Alan, Nick, and McKay did a great job of hosting a unique new tournament idea and really executing it at a high level. And then within the volleyball, we had Saskatchewan, Calgary, and Trinity Western come out and play. And each team had one day where they played 2 matches and then a day where they had 1 match. So it was really cool to get to see some different players, some different lineups, for us to get to experiment and try some different things at this phase of the season is a little new and unique. So we really enjoyed that. And ultimately, what Dan alluded to was the serving became a huge factor, because with the Mikasa ball, like the Canadian teams use in their league play, the float serves are a lot more effective. And with the molten ball, the red, white, blue ball that we use, the float serves aren't nearly as effective, and how the ball floats and how you contact the ball and how you drive it is a little bit different. And we really saw that being between Long Beach, Pepperdine, and us. The biggest difference was the serve and pass, which is not breaking news for anyone, but we really saw as the Canadian teams try to hit the molten ball a little bit differently from the end line with their float serves or their topspin servers, we saw more errors start to come. And I think that ultimately led to, which was pretty cool, the North American teams swept every Canadian team. So definitely something that we took pride in as the 3 NCAA USA representatives for this tournament.
It's a great format. And, I was going to mention that the format is basically USA versus Canada. So they're going to collect all the points from the American teams against the Canadian teams, but the straight sweep in every match made it real easy to calculate. But we did get to see some shining of new faces that we'll be hopefully hearing about on the Western side, from Pepperdine, a few of the names there, as well as from Long Beach State. We've already said a few. And then, of course, your Tritons, new group of guys, actually not really new. It's young guys coming back with some new additions there. So, looking good for this season here for your Tritons, Brad. Any key performers stick out during that week of play? Because, you guys are saying that it's still January ball, but we know there are guys who've been watching. But did anyone catch your eye specifically in the performances during the week? Because there are some new names I saw in there, but I'm gonna let you guys have at it and then add in if you don't, mention them. So let's start. Jay, I don't think you've gone first at all so far, huh?
Nice. I'm taking who everybody's talking about. Keone Thim. That's the guy for me. For those of you that remember any conversations I had over the last few years, I like short outside hitters or short players that step up and play like big players. Marv Dunphy used to say, it's not how big you are, it's how big you play. Keone Thim is a 6'10 plus player packed in a 6-foot frame. The kid has got a good arm. He's got a good jump. He's a good blocker, decent blocker, and just got a serve that is unbelievable. So he gets my nod for the week for being a player of the week nomination.
All right, let's go, Brad.
I'll go. I mentioned him a little bit. Adrian Rohr, just 2 really steady nights, passing, attacking, serving, from University of Hawaii.
All right, Dan.
I'm going to go to De'Aaron McCraney, a little Miva love. I think he's done a phenomenal job he was a transfer in last year for them and has really continued to elevate his game and had a really good second night for sure, and even had a good first night. So,
and then Theo.
Yeah, I'll take Clay. I think it's Weeder is how you pronounce his last name. But I thought Clay did a fantastic job, and he's the transfer from Lindenwood who's now at Hawaii. Steady on the passing front, served really well, hit 429 in night 1 with 14 kills. Played some pretty good ball. But I think we also got to mention Luke Benson for sure. Luke on night 1, 13 kills, 1 error, hit 571. That's some decent ball there.
Well, you guys didn't go to my guy, but because I'm the shallow fan base kind of guy that just likes hard hit balls, I'm gonna go with Ben Braun of Long Beach State, the middle. That's a lot of 6'11" of that dude, and he hits the ball hard. And I posted a video of his hammer on the quick in the middle that made so much noise. It's getting like 400,000 views, like so quick. So thank you, Ben Braun. And it was an entertaining night, some great comments and engagement on there. So that's my shallow take on my player of the week. No stats involved. It was all about the blasts. With that, let's look at week 2. What should our fans be watching out for as we start up? I know it's a lot. It's going to be feel free to drop a few of them, but let's start. Dan, I think you always have your eye on a few, like right out the gate.
There's so many volleyball matches, so I just like. You have the Santa Barbara. I'm really excited to see Brad and the Tritons play McKendree. That's coming up pretty quick. You know what I mean? It'll be a great match, 2 really good teams. And so, but the Santa Barbara Invitational is always fantastic. So I think lots of competition going on with that. You got Penn State and Maryville coming to Chicago to play us and Loyola. And so that's a great opening weekend. Maryville had a really good, they were 22-8, I think, as an independent. And they're kind of a fairly new program going into their 3rd or 4th year. And so they're doing some things that are really good as the GLVC kind of opens up from there. And so, I'll just, a couple of those right there, I think is great because there's so much. I'll let these guys jump in. So.
All right, let's go over to Theo.
Yeah, God, there's so many good ones. I think the one interesting one is Fort Valley is playing Ohio State. I was talking to Larry Rather last week, and he's really excited about his team. He's got some guys coming back that are going to be pretty good. He's got some new additions, and he's super, super excited. So Ohio State coming off a loss, rebounding and getting themselves back on track. Be interesting to see if those guys can get an upset over Ohio State. And then you got Princeton plays USC, and you've got Grand Canyon and NJIT. I think that's super interesting. These beginning of the season matches are always unique, and doesn't matter your ranking, doesn't matter where you're at. A few too many errors, and we could have ourselves a ball game and potentially an upset. So those are some that I'm watching. My three favorites though are UC San Diego, right? McKendree, St. Francis, and Harvard. Go get them, Tritons. You, baby.
Let's go over to Brad.
A fun story. So obviously we're playing McKendree, and one of our assistant coaches was a graduate from McKendree and coached at McKendree. So really excited for Jorge and getting to go up against Nikki, who's been a mentor for him and a great friend of mine. And then the cool thing is Rummy, who's been coaching for a while now, he called me this summer. He goes, Brad, I want to come out and play you and UCLA because those are two gyms I've never coached in. And he's trying to coach in every single gym in the NCAA. So he gets to check 2 off his list here on his West Coast trip. So really excited to have Rummy out to Lion Tree Arena and get to host him and his team. They bring back a lot of really talented guys. So I think we got our hands full here this week. And
that's amazing. Rummy's like been coaching the second longest in the NCAA behind Pav, like 40 years or something like that. So
I think his last one on the list is BYU, if I remember correctly,
yeah.
that he's trying to get out to the following year. So really cool for him. And then I think outside of just what we're going to be worried about, is after we finish up and getting to watch the where'd it go? Oh, the Ball State Stanford. I think those will be really interesting matches. I know Stanford's going to be really young out on the court. We got to watch them a little bit because they played Saskatchewan leading up to our match with them. So we got to see a little bit of what they're doing. But I think Ball State, everyone is really intrigued by their new piece from Quincy and how he's going to add into the mix with Tianashi and Pat Rogers in terms of those 3 pins are going to be pretty darn strong and going to bring some heat as attackers.
Yeah. And Jay.
Ball State, Stanford, fun to watch. Penn State, Loyola, Lewis, fun to watch. I'm jumping into the NIL game, trying to find somebody who wants to sponsor me. So this week, sponsored by Tommy Burger. If it doesn't have the red roof, it ain't the real deal. Tommy Burger's the place to go. That's the best burger in LA. It ain't In-N-Out. It's Tommy Burger.
Oh,
my match.
The hot take right there.
Charleston versus Queens. 2 teams that have not had historical love in terms of the rankings, but are 2 teams that are poised to make that jump into the 4A. I want to see what those 2 teams look like. Tommy's, the best burger in LA.
Well,
hey,
I'm going to add my. Oh, I'm going to add my. Go ahead.
I want to throw one more in. So Barry's a first-year program, and they're playing Erskine. And so it's neat to see a brand new program out of Florida that's competing, which is an area that I think growth can happen. You know what I mean? In terms of we have it in the Conference Carolinas, but there's a lot of boys playing in Florida, and it'd be a great place to geographically see it kind of blow up a little bit. So good luck to Barry as they're kind of starting their inaugural season. So
where is Barry located?
Miami.
Close to Miami.
Yeah.
Oh, a lot of ball there. That'd be great to see that thing take off in South Florida.
And I believe they have a MIVA transfer, Liam Finizzi, from Loyola. And he's going to be a pretty good player to help kickstart that program.
I feel like they're either Gamecocks or Cardinal again, but we'll figure that out. I'll look into that more. But I want to add my pick in there, my battle of the 3-letter names. Dan versus Pav. That's the one I'm watching. That would be Penn State against Lewis, just because 2 great coaches and always great programs to see. And one more 3-letter team, UCI. I got to watch them. They haven't played yet. So I'm excited to see them get some time on the court. And anything at E-Bar, because got Brad and Theo up there taking on Tusculum, Menlo, and Missouri S&T. I just don't know if all those are going to be streamed, which is a bummer because I want to see those teams play. I know that certain Big West schools may have some issues streaming this year, from what I can gather, but I'll let you guys talk about that if you know anything else. But I'm hoping that's not the case. It just was some chatter I heard at Long Beach at the North American Challenge this last weekend. So hopefully it's not true, but I'm hoping, per the agreement, all those matches can be streamed. So is there anything that we've missed this week, gentlemen? Are we ready to call it episode 243 and we're out? I believe we are. So with that, for Brad Rothschild of UC San Diego, got to say the whole San Diego now per branding, Theo Edwards of CSUN, and you got Jay Hosick pointing at something. My eyes are so bad I can't read that, but he's of George Mason. Why don't you put that up to the screen there? Yay. 2025 men's volleyball season is here for our listeners on the podcast. And Dan, friend of Lewis, who is chilling literally in Canada. So in any case, looking forward to your guys' results this week. Looking forward to chatting next week. Best of luck to you. And be sure to follow all these guys' programs and anything men's volleyball. We really need to piggyback on what we saw happen at the NCAA women's volleyball season and championship, which is record viewing, record attendance, record engagement all across all channels. So gentlemen, so appreciate your time. And I wish you all a happy new year. We can say that till January 7th is what I think we came down to, but anything beyond that, you're going to get, a ball thrown at from behind. So gentlemen, have a good rest of your day and week.
Tommy Burger.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for listening to College Volleyball Weekly. Be sure to follow Rob Aspero at The Rob on the Mic on Instagram and at Rob on the Mic on Twitter.